So picture this. It's 11:30 at night. The house is, completely dark. The world has shut down. You are physically shattered. Your limbs feel like they're made of lead. And you've been yawning since, what, 4 p.m.?
Mm-hmm. The afternoon crash.
Exactly. So you crawl into bed just desperate for the oblivion of sleep. You close your eyes and ping.
There it is.
It's like someone just flipped a breaker in your brain, and suddenly you're drafting emails for next Tuesday, you're replaying an argument you had like in 2019, you are simultaneously exhausted to the point of pain, and yet your mind is it's running a marathon.
The tired and wired paradox.
Yeah.
It is, I think, the defining physiological state of the modern era.
It is absolute torture. And it usually brings friends along for the ride, right? That inability to function before 3 cups of coffee.
Oh, for sure.
Or that specific intense craving for salty chips in the late afternoon, like you'd fight someone for a bag of pretzels.
Yeah, your body is screaming for minerals. We'll get into that.
And the kicker is, you finally drag yourself to your GP, you describe this feeling of being burnt out but plugged in, they run a standard metabolic panel, and they tell you nothing.
You're the picture of health. Everything's within normal range.
Exactly. You walk out of there feeling completely gaslit by your own blood work. You feel like an absolute wreck, but the paper says you're fine.
And that's so frustrating for people.
It is. So, that is the mystery we are solving today. We are decoding the biology of burnout. We're going to look at the mechanism behind what everyone calls adrenal fatigue, even though, we're going to correct that terminology pretty quickly. And we're going to deep dive into the one mineral that seems to be the linchpin for the entire system, magnesium.
And this isn't just about stress management in the bubble bath and scented candle sense.
Right.
We're looking at the gradient of health. Conventional medicine is fantastic at saving your life when you have a heart attack or a failing organ. It's pathology. It's black and white.
You're either broken or you're not.
Right. But functional medicine, which is really the lens we're using today, asks a different question. How is the engine running before it explodes? We're looking at how the body manages cortisol and how it utilizes the actual fuel required to keep the lights on.
We're looking under the hood, and the stack for this deep dive is incredibly robust. We've pulled clinical protocols from the Connection Clinic, and they focus heavily on that functional approach to adrenal issues.
Yeah, their stuff is really practical.
It is. And we have some really dense biochemical data from Mito Health and Function Health. I mean, these sources get really granular on nutrient absorption, which I love.
The nitty-gritty detail.
Totally. And we're backing it all up with micronutrient research from the Linus Pauling Institute, which is, just rock solid.
It's a heavy stack. We've got the clinical side, the biochemical side, and the lifestyle piece. It's the whole picture.
So let's start with the elephant in the room, adrenal fatigue. If I say that to an endocrinologist, they're going to roll their eyes at me. Why is that term so controversial if the symptoms are so real for so many people?
It's really a matter of anatomical precision. When you see adrenal fatigue, the image it conjures is that the adrenal glands themselves, those little walnut-sized factories sitting on top of your kidneys, are physically tired.
Right, like they've run out of cortisol.
Like a car that has run out of gas, that they've just given up.
Which would be Addison's disease, right? A true pathology.
Precisely. Addison's disease is where the adrenal cortex is actually destroyed, usually by an autoimmune attack. That is a life-threatening pathology, a true medical emergency.
Okay.
But for the vast, vast majority of people feeling tired and wired, their adrenal glands are physically capable of producing cortisol. The factory is fine. The machinery works. The problem isn't the factory. It's the management.
The orders coming from corporate are messed up.
That is the perfect analogy. The medical term we should be using is HPA axis dysfunction, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
Right, so that's the command chain.
That's the command chain. The hypothalamus in your brain is the CEO. It perceives a threat, could be a tiger, could be an overdue tax bill, could be a drop in blood sugar, and it sends a signal, a little hormone called CRH, to the pituitary gland, which is the middle manager.
Okay.
The pituitary then releases its own signal, ACTH, which is basically an order screamed down a phone line to the adrenals, telling them to pump out cortisol. Now,
and in a functional system, this is a loop, right? It's supposed to turn itself out.
Yes, it's a beautiful negative feedback loop. The adrenals release cortisol. The cortisol handles the stress. It mobilizes glucose for energy. It sharpens your focus. And then that elevated cortisol travels back up to the brain and signals both the hypothalamus and the pituitary. Job done. We are safe. stop the alarm, and the whole system quiets down.
But in the tired and wired listener, the alarm is stuck. The off switch is broken.
The switch is stuck in the on position. Or, more accurately, the CEO has stopped listening to the feedback from the factory floor. Chronic stress creates a situation where the brain becomes resistant to that all-clear signal from cortisol.
It's like insulin resistance, but for stress.
That is a fantastic way to put it. Cortisol resistance. So you have high cortisol output when you don't need it, like at 11:30 at night, and potentially a blunted low output when you do need it, like when you're trying to wake up. It's dysregulation, not fatigue.
And when we talk about stress causing this, I think it's so important to clarify what the body considers stress. Because I think people assume we just mean, I hate my job.
Right, the psychological component.
Yeah. But looking at the Connection Clinic notes, the body doesn't seem to differentiate between an angry boss and a skipped meal.
That is a critical insight. Your HPA axis is a resource management system. It's ancient. It doesn't care why you were depleted. It just knows you are depleted. So yes, psychological stress is a massive trigger. Work, relationships, financial struggles.
The big stuff.
The big stuff. But so is sleep deprivation. If you are sleeping less than 7 hours a night, consistently, you are physically stressing the system, period.
And the notes also mentioned toxins and gut health. This connection is fascinating.
Dysbiosis, an imbalance in your gut bacteria, is a huge one. The gut and the brain are in constant communication via the vagus nerve. If you have inflammation in your gut from bad bacteria or food sensitivities, your brain perceives that as a low-grade constant threat.
And it activates the HPA axis.
It activates the HPA axis.
Right.
Conversely, high cortisol thins the gut lining, making it more permeable or leaky. So it's a vicious cycle where gut issues cause stress and stress causes gut issues. You can't fix one without addressing the other.
And environmental factors too.
Yeah.
Smoking, alcohol, heavy metals. It all just adds to the pile.
All of it adds to what we call the allostatic load, the total cumulative burden on the system. Your body can handle a lot of stress, but it can't handle everything all the time, forever.
I want to drill down on the consequences of this because there was a point in the source material from Dr. Conrad Grosser that honestly scared me a little bit. He wasn't just talking about feeling groggy or craving salt. He was talking about cellular aging.
This is where we move from feeling bad to actual measurable biological damage. Chronic high cortisol is catabolic. That means it breaks things down. It breaks down muscle for energy, thins skin, weakens bones.
And what Dr. Grosser points out is the link to DNA damage, specifically the shortening of telomeres.
Exactly. Telomeres are the protective caps on the ends of our chromosomes, right? People use the analogy of the little plastic tips on shoelaces, the aglets.
Right, they keep the DNA from fraying.
They do. And every time a cell divides, the telomere gets a little shorter. When it gets too short, the cell can no longer divide. It becomes senescent, a zombie cell that just hangs around causing inflammation, or it simply dies.
And stress accelerates this.
It dramatically accelerates the shortening. So when we say stress ages you, we aren't being poetic. We are being literal. You are aging faster at a genetic level.
Wow. And there's an inflammation component here too. The sources mention cytokines.
Yes. High stress, especially the psychological kind, increases pro-inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha. These are signaling molecules that tell the immune system to go on high alert, to attack.
But here is the trap, right? Inflammation itself triggers the HPA axis.
You got it. The brain sees inflammation as a threat and releases cortisol to suppress it. Cortisol is a powerful anti-inflammatory. That's why they give you cortisone shots for joint pain.
So it's trying to put out the fire.
It is. But if the inflammation is chronic, from a bad diet, from gut issues, from that constant stress, the system burns out. You end up in this horrible state of high inflammation and HPA dysfunction, where your body is screaming for help but the control system is broken.
Which explains why you feel achy, foggy, and just generally unwell. Your body is fighting a war on two fronts.
It's exhausting at a cellular level.
Now, looking at the demographics in the research, there seems to be a real gender difference in how this HPA axis behaves. The hormones don't play the same game in men and women?
No, they don't. It's a fascinating nuance of, well, evolutionary biology. Estrogen tends to amplify the HPA response. It upregulates the release of cortisol.
So wait, what does that mean in practical terms?
It means that, biologically speaking, a woman might have a more robust and potentially more taxing cortisol spike in response to the same stressor compared to a man. The alarm bell rings louder, you could say.
Whereas testosterone does the opposite.
Testosterone acts as a buffer. It tends to inhibit the HPA axis. It dampens the signal. So men have a little bit of a biological shield against that initial spike.
Huh. But the thyroid is the great equalizer here, isn't it? The notes seem to link them very tightly.
They are inextricably linked. The adrenal glands and the thyroid are like dance partners. They have to be in sync. If the adrenals are dysregulated and screaming emergency, the thyroid almost always slows down to conserve energy. It's a survival mechanism.
So your metabolism literally slows down.
It does. You'll see a suppression of TSH, thyroid-stimulating hormone, or more commonly, a problem converting the inactive T4 hormone into the active T3 hormone. So you can end up with adrenal dysfunction and functional hypothyroidism.
And that's why stubborn weight gain, especially around the middle, is such a common symptom.
That's the cortisol-thyroid 1-2 punch right there.
Okay, so we have established that this is a massive systemic physiological breakdown. It's not just in your head, it's real. But earlier, we touched on the frustration of diagnosis. Why does the standard medical system miss this so consistently? If my HPA axis is on fire, why does my blood work look normal?
It really comes back to what the test is designed to find. Standard medicine is screening for pathology. They want to know if you have a tumor on your pituitary gland or an autoimmune disease that has completely destroyed the organ.
They're looking for the exploded engine, not the sputtering one.
Perfectly said. And the reference ranges on those lab reports. They're based on a bell curve of the general population.
A population that is already pretty stressed and sick, by the way.
Correct. So being normal in a sick population just means you are average, not that you are healthy or optimal. But the methodology of the test itself is also deeply flawed for this specific condition.
You mean the blood draw itself?
Think about the mechanics of a blood test. You drive to the doctor, you might be late, you wait in a room, you sit on crinkly paper, and then someone you don't know sticks a needle in your arm.
I hate needles. My heart rate goes up just thinking about it.
Exactly. The act of testing induces a stress response. You are spiking your cortisol at the exact moment you are trying to measure it. It's the Heisenberg uncertainty principle of endocrinology. You change the outcome by observing it.
And on top of that, it's just a single snapshot in time, usually at 8:00 or 9:00 a.m.
Yes, so it tells you what your cortisol is doing at that specific second, but it tells you absolutely nothing about the rest of the day.
Because cortisol is circadian. It has a rhythm.
It's supposed to look like a ski slope. It should shoot up first thing in the morning, that's the cortisol awakening response, or GRR, to get you out of bed and get you going. Then it should glide down steadily throughout the day, hitting its lowest point at night so melatonin can take over and you can sleep.
So that one number from the blood test tells you nothing about the shape of that slope.
Nothing. You could have a normal total number, but your curve could be totally flat, or worse, inverted low in the morning and then spiking high at night.
Which is the exact tired and wired profile. You have no gas in the morning and you're revving the engine when you should be in the garage.
And a standard blood test misses that dynamic completely.
Okay, so if the blood test is a blunt instrument, what is the scalpel? The Connection Clinic protocols were very, very specific about this.
Saliva testing. In the functional medicine world, this is the gold standard for HPA assessment. It's so simple. You just spit into a tube at 4 or 5 key moments throughout the day.
So you collect samples upon waking.
Yep. Upon waking, then 30 minutes later to check that morning spike, then around noon, again in the late afternoon, and finally right before bed.
So you're literally mapping the curve.
You're mapping the entire circadian curve. And crucially, saliva measures free cortisol. This is a really important point.
What's the difference?
In your blood, about 95% of cortisol is bound to proteins, like cortisol-binding globulin. It's inactive. It's just being transported. It's not working. Saliva tells us how much active hormone is actually available to your cells at that moment. It's the biologically available fraction.
That makes so much more sense. Now, there was also a mention of urine testing in the notes, like the DUTCH test. Is that just a different way to do the same thing?
It offers a different but complementary perspective. A 24-hour dried urine collection tells you the total volume of cortisol produced in a day. And importantly, it shows you the metabolites.
What do the metabolites tell you?
They tell us how your liver is clearing or breaking down the stress hormones. Are you a fast metabolizer or a slow one? So it gives you the total production capacity picture, while saliva gives you the circadian rhythm picture. Both are infinitely better than a random blood draw.
I want to touch on 2 specific markers that came up again and again in the diagnosis section. The TAR, that cortisol awakening response, and the DHEA ratio. Let's start with the CIR. Is this why I sometimes feel like I've been hit by a truck when my alarm goes off?
It is very likely, yes. In a healthy person, cortisol should surge by about 50%, sometimes more, in the first 30 minutes after waking.
Oh.
That is your biological boot up sequence. It gets glucose to the brain, it clears the sleep inertia.
It's the body's own shot of espresso.
It is. But if you have HPA dysfunction, that line is often flat. You wake up and the chemical signal to go just never arrives. You are starting the day with an empty tank.
So we medicate that flatness with caffeine. Lots and lots of caffeine.
We use external stimulants to try and mimic the cortisol spike that our body failed to produce on its own.
And what about DHEA? The notes called it the counterweight to cortisol.
It's the other side of the coin. Think of cortisol as the spending mechanism. It breaks down tissue to release energy for immediate survival. It is catabolic.
It's tearing down the building to keep the fire going.
A perfect analogy. DHEA, on the other hand, is the savings account. It is anabolic. It builds, repairs, and regenerates tissue. Specifically, it's crucial for repairing the brain and supporting the immune system.
So the ratio between them is basically the balance sheet of your health.
Exactly. If your cortisol is high and your DHEA is low, a very common pattern in burnout, you are in a state of unmitigated breakdown. You're tearing down the house much, much faster than you can repair it. That is the physiological definition of burnout.
That is a really sobering image. Okay, so we have diagnosed the problem. We are dysregulated, our rhythm is inverted, and we are catabolic. We need to fix it. And the sources for this deep dive all point to one primary fuel source, one mineral that seems to govern this entire apparatus.
Magnesium, the master regulator.
Why magnesium? Why not zinc or vitamin C or potassium? What makes magnesium the MVP for adrenal recovery?
Because the physiological cost of stress is magnesium. It is the currency you pay with. Every single time your HPA axis fires, every time you get that adrenaline rush, your body burns through magnesium to manage that process.
And the scary part is, the more stressed you are, the more you waste it.
That's the metabolic trap. Stress causes you to dump magnesium in your urine. So the more you need it to cope with stress, the faster you lose it.
It's a vicious, draining cycle.
It is. And the Linus Pauling Institute data is just staggering on this. Something like 45 to 57% of U.S. adults do not even meet the recommended daily allowance for magnesium from their diet.
And let's be clear, the RDA is the bare minimum, right?
It's the don't get scurvy number. It's the amount you need to prevent overt acute deficiency disease. It is absolutely not the thrive or be resilient to stress number. So over half the population is starting with a half-empty tank.
And magnesium isn't just a nice to have, I think the number was. It's involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions.
It's closer to 600 by some modern estimates. I mean, it's involved in DNA synthesis, RNA synthesis, protein synthesis, heart rhythm regulation, blood pressure.
Okay.
But for our tired and wired listener, there are two functions that matter more than anything else. First, energy.
This is the ATP connection, right?
Yes. We all learn in high school biology that ATP is the energy molecule of the cell. But that's a simplification. In the body, biologically active ATP is almost always bound to a magnesium ion. It exists as a complex, MgATP.
So if you don't have the magnesium, the ATP molecule is unstable or useless.
It's functionally useless. You can have all the glucose and oxygen in the world flowing into your mitochondria, but without magnesium to stabilize that ATP molecule, you cannot unlock its energy. You have a full tank of gas, but no spark plug.
That is the tired part. You literally cannot make energy.
You cannot. And the wired part.
The brain.
That's the neurological function. Magnesium acts as the brake pedal for the nervous system. It sits in and blocks a specific receptor in the brain called the NMDA receptor.
Okay, what does that do?
These receptors get excited by the neurotransmitter glutamate and by calcium. They are the go, go, go signals. If there is no magnesium to sit in that channel and act as a gatekeeper, the neuron is in a state of constant low-level firing.
It's hyperexcitability.
It is. It's the biological basis of anxiety. You physically cannot relax because your neurochemistry is stuck on go. So low magnesium equals high anxiety and high susceptibility to stress.
So the deficiency creates the stress, and the stress worsens the deficiency. We are right back to the snake eating its tail.
Which is why breaking the loop almost always requires exogenous support. You have to consciously and deliberately put the fuel back in the tank.
Okay, so we need magnesium. Simple, right? I go to the pharmacy, I buy the bottle that says magnesium. Done.
If only it were that simple.
But this is where the listener critique and my own experience gets real. You walk down that supplement aisle and it's a complete minefield. Magnesium oxide, citrate, glycinate, millet, threonate. It feels like you need a chemistry degree just to choose a bottle.
It is incredibly confusing, and the marketing doesn't help. But the chemistry matters immensely. Magnesium is a reactive metal. You can't just eat a chunk of magnesium. It has to be bound to a carrier molecule, what's called a chelate, like a salt or an amino acid, to be stable and absorbable.
And that carrier molecule determines everything.
It determines two critical things: absorption, so how much actually gets into your bloodstream, and destination, meaning where it preferentially goes in the body.
So let's consult the Choose Your Weapon guide based on the function, health, and meto-health data. And let's start with the one to avoid, which naturally is the one found in every cheap multivitamin and drugstore bottle: magnesium oxide.
Magnesium oxide is the rock of the group. It is a very small, dense molecule, so you can pack a lot of elemental magnesium into one pill, which looks good on the label.
500 milligrams of magnesium.
Exactly. But it is incredibly hard for the body to break down and absorb. You need a ton of stomach acid to dissociate the magnesium from the oxygen ion. The bioavailability is notoriously poor. Some studies suggest it's as low as 4%,
4%. So you swallow 500 milligrams and you maybe get 20 milligrams into your blood.
if you're lucky.
Mhm.
And the other 480 milligrams stays in your gut. And because magnesium is an osmotic agent, it draws water towards it.
So, laxative effect.
A very strong laxative effect. So oxide is great if you have heartburn because it neutralizes acid, or if you are very constipated. But for fixing a systemic deficiency and calming your HPA axis, it is largely useless.
Okay, so hard pass on the oxide. What about citrate? I feel like this is the most common powder form you see, the one you mix with water.
Citrate is the plumber. It's magnesium bound to citric acid. It absorbs better than oxide for sure, but it still has a very strong osmotic effect in the gut. It pulls a lot of water into the intestines.
Which means
It means if you take a high dose to try and fix your deficiency, you're going to spend the evening in the bathroom. We call it reaching bowel tolerance. It's very hard to get your systemic levels up with citrate because your gut rebels before your cells get enough of what they need.
got it. So for the tired and wired person whose main goal is to sleep and relax, what is the gold standard?
Without a doubt, magnesium glycinate. This is the chill pill. It is magnesium bound to the amino acid glycine. And this is a beautiful double win.
Why a double win?
Because the magnesium does its job as the brake pedal, but the glycine itself is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. It's a calming molecule.
So the carrier molecule is actually medicinal too.
Exactly. Glycine calms the brain, it supports GABA activity, and it has been shown to lower core body temperature, which is a key physiological trigger for initiating deep sleep. On top of all that, it is highly bioavailable and incredibly gentle on the stomach.
So if your main issue is wired at night, racing thoughts, anxiety, this is your go-to.
Absolutely. It's the #1 choice for sleep and stress.
Okay, but what if I'm more tired than wired? What if my problem isn't falling asleep, it's waking up? I need to function at 8 a.m., and glycine sounds like it might make me sleepy.
Then you look at magnesium malate. This is magnesium bound to malic acid, and malic acid is a key player in the Krebs cycle.
The actual energy production cycle inside our mitochondria.
Yes. You are literally delivering a key ingredient for ATP production directly to the factory. Malate is fantastic for energy, for muscle pain, and it's heavily researched for conditions like fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome.
So it doesn't sedate you, it energizes you.
Correct. It's the perfect morning magnesium.
We have a night mag and a morning mag. I love that. Okay, there were two other specialty forms mentioned that seem really interesting and targeted. Let's talk about magnesium toro.
Taurate is the heart guardian. It's magnesium bound to the amino acid taurine. Taurine is one of the most abundant amino acids in the heart muscle itself. It's critical for cardiovascular health.
So how does it help?
It helps stabilize cell membranes in the heart, regulates the heart's rhythm, and helps lower blood pressure. So if your stress manifests as heart palpitations, arrhythmias, or high blood pressure, taurate is a specific tool for that job.
That's incredibly specific. And finally, the one with the really big claims attached to it, magnesium L-threonate.
The brain booster. This is a newer patented form that was developed by researchers at MIT specifically to cross the blood-brain barrier.
Wait, do the others not get into the brain?
They do, but it's a slow, tightly regulated process. The brain is very picky about what it lets in. L-threonate seems to have a VIP pass. Studies show it increases magnesium concentrations in the cerebrospinal fluid much more efficiently than other forms.
So this is for cognitive function, brain fog.
Memory, focus, synaptic plasticity. If your burnout feels like you just can't think clearly or you're constantly searching for words, L-threonate is the best option. It is more expensive, but the data on improving what they call brain age and cognition is really compelling.
And just for completion, the notes mentioned magnesium sulfate. That's just Epsom salts, right?
It is. So transdermal absorption through the skin in a bath is a bit debated in terms of raising your blood levels systemically, but as a local muscle relaxant, it's fantastic.
But it's used medically, too.
Medically, magnesium sulfate is used intravenously. It's given to stop premature labor and, critically, to prevent seizures in pregnant women with eclampsia. That shows you just how powerful magnesium is at calming the nervous system. It can literally stop a seizure in its tracks.
That is wild. Okay, so we have our menu of options, but the Mito Health protocols made a huge point about stacking. The idea that taking magnesium in isolation is like trying to build a house with only a hammer. You need the other tools.
This is the ecosystem concept, and it's where so many people go wrong. Nutrients are cofactors for each other. They work in teams. If you take a high dose of one in isolation, you can sometimes create imbalances elsewhere.
And the most critical relationship we need to discuss is the triad: vitamin D, vitamin K2, and magnesium.
It's a big three.
I feel like everyone I know is taking high-dose vitamin D these days, especially after the last few years.
And that can be a real problem if they aren't careful. Here is the mechanism. Vitamin D's primary job is to aid in the absorption of calcium from your gut into your blood.
Okay, sounds good. We need calcium for strong bones.
We do. But vitamin D doesn't tell the calcium where to go. It just dumps it into the bloodstream. If you have high levels of calcium floating around in your blood, but you don't have a director to send it to the bone, that calcium can end up in your soft tissues.
Where you don't want it.
Where you definitely don't want it. It can calcify your arteries, leading to stiffness and heart disease. It can calcify your heart valves. It can form kidney stones.
So this is the calcium paradox. You can have osteoporotic bones and calcified arteries at the same time.
You've nailed it. That's the paradox. And this is where vitamin K2 comes in. K2 is the traffic cop.
I like that.
It activates two key proteins. It switches on osteocalcin, which grabs the calcium from the blood and physically binds it into the bone matrix.
Yeah.
And it activates matrix GLA protein, or MGP, which acts like a little scrub brush, actively removing calcium from your arteries and soft tissues.
So D pulls the calcium in from the gut. K2 tells it where to go. Where does magnesium fit into this?
Magnesium is the power source for the whole operation. The enzymes that metabolize vitamin D in your liver and kidneys, turning the supplement you swallowed into the active hormone your body can actually use, are all magnesium dependent.
So if you are low in magnesium...
If you are low in magnesium, you can take 50,000 IUs of vitamin D and it won't work. You will have a functional vitamin D deficiency because you can't activate it.
And worse, trying to process all that vitamin D that you're taking uses up your last reserves of magnesium?
Correct. High-dose D without magnesium can actually precipitate a magnesium deficiency crisis. Sudden leg cramps, anxiety, heart palpitations. You have to take them as a team. Peter Attee's protocol was mentioned, and he says it flat out. I never give vitamin D without K2 magnesium.
So that stack is non-negotiable. D3, K2, magnesium. Are there any other key players on this team?
Vitamin B6 is a big one, specifically the active form, P5P, which stands for pyridoxal 5-phosphate.
What does B6 do?
Think of B6 as the cellular shuttle. It helps transport magnesium across the cell membrane into the cell where it actually does its work. Some studies show that combining B6 with magnesium can increase intracellular magnesium by 30–40%.
Wow. So it makes the magnesium you take that much more effective.
Exactly. There's a powerful synergy there, particularly for symptoms of anxiety and PMS. One study showed a 60% reduction in PMS symptoms when they were combined versus either one alone.
Okay, this is great theory. Let's turn it into practice. I want to build the deep dive protocols based on the Function Health and Mito Health notes. I'm the listener. I'm tired and wired. Walk me through my day, supplement-wise.
Okay, let's start with the energy mitochondrial stack for the morning. You want to wake up the engine without jittery stimulants like caffeine. Step 1. Magnesium malate, about 200–300 milligrams.
For the Krebs cycle.
For the Krebs cycle. Step 2, a high-quality B complex. You want methylated B vitamins like methylfolate and methylcobamam because stress depletes them rapidly and many people have genetic issues with the standard forms.
Got it. And step 3.
Coenzyme Q10 or CoQ10. This is a compound that facilitates electron transport within the mitochondria. It helps the battery hold a charge. It's fuel for your fuel makers.
Okay, that's my breakfast cocktail. Now fast forward to 10:00 p.m. I'm staring at the ceiling. My brain is buzzing. What is the ultimate sleep stack?
Timing is key here. You want to take this about 45 to 60 minutes before you want to be asleep.
Okay.
Step 1, magnesium glycinate. A solid dose, somewhere between 300 to 500 milligrams. Step 2, L-theanine, About 200 milligrams. This is an amino acid found in green tea. It increases alpha brainwaves, that state of relaxed alertness you feel during meditation. It quiets the mental chatter.
Gained that. And step 3.
Epigenin. This is a bioflavonoid extracted from chamomile. It binds to the benzodiazepine receptors in the brain,
Yeah.
the same ones that drugs like Valium hit, but much more gently. It doesn't sedate you, it just helps initiate sleep onset.
That sounds incredible. A little chemical lullaby. But we have to talk about the don'ts, because the chemistry can go wrong if you're not careful. What are the antagonists? What should we not mix?
This is where people waste so much money and effort. Minerals compete for absorption in the gut. They use the same transport channels. The biggest bully on the playground is calcium.
So if I take my magnesium with a big glass of milk, or a calcium supplement,
The calcium will likely win the fight for the absorption channel, and most of the magnesium will just pass right through you. You need to separate high-dose calcium and magnesium by at least 2, preferably 4 hours. Or keep the ratio low, maybe 1.1, but do not take a 1,000 milligram calcium pill with your magnesium stack.
good to know. What about iron?
Same story. If you are anemic and taking iron, take it in the morning with some vitamin C to boost absorption. Take your magnesium at night. If you take them together, you absorb neither of them well.
And there's a very specific warning in the notes about medications, thyroid meds, and certain antibiotics.
This is critical, and it's a safety issue. Magnesium can chelate, which means it can bind to certain drugs in your gut and render them completely inert.
So they don't work.
They don't work at all. If you are on levothyroxine for your thyroid or tetracycline class antibiotics, magnesium will stop them from being absorbed. You must separate them by at least 4 hours. No exceptions.
That is a pro tip that justifies this whole deep dive right there.
It's hugely important.
So we've handled the chemistry, we've handled the supplements. But we can't pill pop our way out of a lifestyle that is fundamentally destroying us. We have to talk about the behavioral interventions for adrenal recovery.
Absolutely. The supplements are the spark plugs, but they're useless if you don't have gas in the tank or if the engine is on fire. You cannot supplement your way out of sleep deprivation or a toxic diet.
Let's start with diet, and specifically the counterintuitive point from the Connection Clinic about salt. We are trained to fear salt, high blood pressure, heart disease, etc. But for adrenal fatigue, they actually recommend it.
Context is everything here. When the adrenal glands are dysregulated, you often see a drop in a hormone called aldosterone.
What's aldosterone's job?
Aldosterone's job is to tell the kidneys to hold on to sodium and water, which maintains your blood pressure. When aldosterone drops, you become a salt waster. You literally pee out your sodium.
Which explains the dizziness when you stand up too fast.
Yes, that's orthostatic hypotension, a classic sign. And it explains the intense salt cravings. Your body is screaming for the electrolytes it's losing. So, for this specific population, high-quality, unrefined sea salt like Celtic or Redmond real salt, which have other trace minerals, is actually medicinal.
It helps your body hold on to water.
It helps hold fluid volume and supports the adrenals. Obviously, you have to check with your doctor if you have hypertension, but for the tired and wired, low blood pressure person, salt is a friend.
And blood sugar. This seems to be the other dietary pillar.
It is the absolute foundation. Every time your blood sugar crashes, hypoglycemia, your brain views it as a life or death emergency. It's a primal threat.
And its responses,
It screams at the adrenals to release a spike of cortisol and adrenaline to liberate stored glucose from your liver and muscles. So if you are skipping meals or doing aggressive intermittent fasting while you are already burned out, you are riding a cortisol roller coaster all day long.
so the advice is eat regularly.
Eat regular protein-rich meals. The recommendation from the sources for women specifically was to aim for at least 60 to 70 grams of protein minimum spread throughout the day. You need to constantly signal safety and abundance to your metabolic system. Starvation signals danger.
Okay. Now let's talk about exercise, because this is where my instincts really fail me. When I feel sluggish or I see that I've gained a few stress pounds around the middle, my brain says, go to the gym, run fast, lift heavy, punish the fat.
And for someone with HPA dysfunction, that is the exact wrong instinct.
Why? It seems so counterintuitive.
Because exercise is a physical stressor. High-intensity interval training, or HIIT, or a CrossFit-style workout produces a massive cortisol spike.
For a healthy, resilient person, that's a good thing. That's part of the hormonal signal that leads to adaptation and getting stronger.
But if your bucket is already overflowing with stress,
Then adding a HIIT workout is just pouring more water on the floor. It pushes you further into a catabolic breakdown state.
Which is why people with adrenal fatigue often train incredibly hard and can't lose weight, or they actually gain weight.
Exactly. Their body is in threat mode. It's in survival mode. It's going to hold on to every single calorie, especially around the vital organs in the abdomen.
So we have to slow down to speed up recovery.
You have to earn the right to do intensity. The prescription for recovery is gentle parasympathetic movement, walking, especially nature, swimming, restorative yoga, tai chi. You want movement that stimulates the rest and digest nervous system, not the fight or flight one.
That requires a lot of mental discipline to not feel like you're being lazy, but it makes perfect biological sense.
It does. Now, there was a structural intervention mentioned that I had never connected to adrenals before. Gunstead chiropractic. How does adjusting the spine help your adrenal glands?
So this connects right back to the nervous system. The Gonstead method is a very specific analytical approach to the spine. The theory is that if you have misalignments, what chiropractors call subluxations, particularly in the thoracic spine around the T9 to T12 area, or in the upper cervicals, you are creating mechanical interference in the autonomic nervous system.
So the phone line between the CEO in the brain and the factory in the adrenals has static on it.
That's a great way to put it. The nerves that supply the adrenal glands exit the spine at those specific levels. If there is mechanical pressure or irritation there, the signaling can be disrupted. By correcting the structure, you remove that hidden physical stressor, allowing the software, the nervous system, to run better.
It's removing another source of noise in the system that you might not even know is there.
Precisely.
And finally, for the people who are really deep in the hole, like their gut is a mess, they can't absorb food, they're in a total crash, there was the nuclear option.
5E nutrient therapy. This is for when the oral route is compromised or just not enough. We mentioned earlier that chronic stress damages the gut lining. If you have leaky gut or malabsorption, you might be swallowing all these great supplements but only absorbing 10% of them.
So you're just making expensive urine.
Exactly. 5E therapy bypasses the digestive system entirely. You put the high-dose nutrients, vitamin C, magnesium, B complex, the master antioxidant glutathione, directly into the vein. It floods the cells with the cofactors they desperately need to make energy right now.
It's like using the jumpstart cables on a dead car battery.
It is. It's not a permanent lifestyle, but for someone who is really crashed, it can give them the energy boost they need to actually start cooking healthy meals and taking those gentle walks. It breaks the inertia.
So what does this all mean? We've covered biochemistry, supplements, diet, mechanics. It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot, but it tells a single coherent story. Adrenal fatigue, or more accurately, HPA axis dysfunction, is a real, measurable physiological breakdown. It is a signaling problem caused by chronic, unmitigated resource depletion.
And magnesium is the #1 resource we're all lacking.
It is the foundational mineral.
Yep.
You cannot recover without it. But you have to be smart about it. You have to choose the right form for your goal, glycinate for sleep, malactate for energy, and you have to stack it with its team, D3, K2, and B6.
And you have to stop acting like you can outrun your own biology with more caffeine and more intensity.
That is the ultimate takeaway. You have to work with your physiology, not against it.
You know, when you look at this whole picture, we live indoors, so we're low in vitamin D. We eat food grown in depleted soil, so we're low in magnesium. We're surrounded 24/7 by artificial light and digital alarms, so we have high stress. And we eat processed food that causes gut inflammation.
It really raises the question, is this condition actually a disease? Or is it a perfectly normal, predictable response to a completely abnormal environment?
We are evolutionarily mismatched. We are running Paleolithic hardware on digital age software, and the system is crashing.
We are. And when you look at the stats, 80% of adults feel frequently tired, and over 50% are magnesium deficient. It suggests that burnout isn't a personal failure. It's not that you aren't disciplined or strong enough.
It's that you are fighting a biochemical math problem that you haven't been taught how to solve.
That's it. It's a math problem.
But now we have the formula. We know the inputs and the outputs. We know the variables.
And once you start to balance the equation, the body knows how to heal. It wants to heal. It's hardwired for homeostasis.
That is a really hopeful place to leave it. It's just math. Go balance your equation.
Get some magnesium, get some sleep.
And we will catch you on the next deep dive.
Take care.